So how do you begin? Firstly, be clear on the focus. Let's consider finishing. How many different ways can you score a goal? You can score from close range, long range. You might combine to score, or you can score from wide areas. Can you cover all this in one session? How much can the players learn in one session? So how does this influence your planning? When selecting a topic, make sure you have a clear focus and don't try and do too much. Try and break it down into smaller sections. Secondly, what does the game look like? But not Pep Guardiola's Manchester City, or Arsene Wenger's Arsenal. What does your game look like? Remember, a 5v5 under 7s game doesn't look like a 7v7 or 11v11 game. So plan a session that's accurate to your format. Let's have a quick recap. Firstly, when planning, be clear on what your topic is. Secondly, remember what your game looks like. So now let's design a practice that meets this criteria. So the practice. For this example, we will use the foundation phase and under 10s. We'll have a topic of close range finishing, so here's our checklist. Lots of opportunities to practice close range finishing, and it looks like the game under 10s will play. So we will start with a pitch. We will split this pitch into zones and number these 1, 2 and 3. In order for close range shots to happen, we need the players shooting from zone 3. How it works. The ball must advance through the zones to score. So if the ball is in zone 2, you must get the ball into zone 3 before shooting. Players are free to move around the pitch. You can progress into the next zone by passing or dribbling. So does the practice meet the criteria? Does it have a clear focus? We have a topic of close range finishing. To allow this to happen, the ball needs to be in zone 3 before you shoot. Does it look like a game? It has a similar playing area, and the amount of players on the pitch will be similar. So now we have a practice that will help with close range finishing. The next step is to consider how you will support the players within the practice. You need to try and make sure the players have an enjoyable experience. You need to try and make sure that the players take something from the practice. So let's take a look at the different things we can do to help you and the players during the practice. Firstly, let's consider the long-term player development. This is how we will support the long-term development of the players within the practice. This is done by working across 4 key areas. This is the FA 4-corner model. It consists of the following components. We have technical and tactical, psychological, physical, and social. And in practice, it looks like this. So how do you utilize it? Let's take a look at our practice. The opposition are now displayed. To support the long-term development of the players, consider what technical, tactical, psychological, physical, and social development the players need in the practice. Pause the video and have a go. Remember, this is under 10s. So what did you come up with? So what does this mean during the practice? To start with, what goes in each box should reflect the players you're working with. Think about the skills or attributes your players need support with. Take a look at this. Remember, this practice is only part of a session. Can we cover all of this during our practice? Probably not. So what can you do? You can decide on the 1 or 2 most important corners and try and maximise the development in these areas. What influences the long-term player development? The players. But more specifically, the players you're working with. Different players, teams, and environments will have different demands, and you have to be aware of this when planning. So let's think about how players can influence the planning process. Meeting the different needs of the players should be at the forefront when planning. Think about why players attend the sessions. Think about the motivations of the players. Think about how the sessions will help the players. Think about the development stage of the players. Think about the ability of the players within the session. So what do you do with this information? This information will really help you plan a session that meets the needs of the players. You will be able to focus the long-term player development. For example, if the players require social development, you can plan for this. With everything we have just covered, let's consider the earlier practice. So how are we going to make sure that this practice meets the needs of the players? The players may have a technical need, so we give repetition of close range finishing. A psychological need, so we give lots of decisions to make. A physical need, so we give lots of football specific movements. Social need, so we can give the players responsibility. Remember, meet the needs of the players you're working with and plan for it. The next step is to plan. Firstly, how you might change the practice to meet the needs of the players, and secondly, how you might progress the practice to meet the needs of the players. Changing the practice. You might change the practice if it isn't meeting a specific need. For this example, the practice isn't meeting the technical needs of the players. Remember, the topic is close range finishing, so the players need to be shooting from near the goal. If the ball isn't reaching zone 3, then this isn't happening. So we can change the practice and reduce the number of zones. Because the topic is close range finishing, we will need to adjust the size of the pitch too. And now the progression. We progress the practice once the players are having success. This is to continue the learning of the players. So to progress the practice, you could introduce a target player. This player will be locked into zone 3. You must play through this player to score. Or you can score 2 goals if you play through the target player. So how does the session look so far? We have the topic, close range finishing. We have the practice design. We have the long-term player development. We have the change if it's needed. We have the progression if the players are ready. The final thing you need to consider. How can you challenge the players? To challenge the players, you have a few options. You can challenge an individual within the practice, challenge a group within the practice, challenge the whole team. All three have different outcomes and benefits. The session and the players should determine which is most appropriate. Let's take a look at each one before adding one to the practice. Individual challenge. An individual challenge is where you can challenge one player within the practice. Individual challenges can provide success to a player within the practice, encourage a player, challenge a player to try a new skill, challenge a player to try a different option. Individual challenges are a great way to affect a specific player within the practice. Group challenge. This is where you challenge a specific group of players within the practice. An example of this is to challenge a specific unit. Group challenges can provide you with the opportunity to explore high levels of detail with a specific group, different ways of problem solving within the target group. It might encourage the target group. Team challenge. There are 2 examples of these. Firstly, a team within the practice is challenged. Or secondly, everyone in the practice is challenged. Team challenges can work really well with social development. Team challenges can encourage players to take responsibility. Team challenges can encourage the players to solve problems together. Let's add a challenge to the practice. We can add an individual challenge to our target player during the progression. Challenge. Can you think of and show me different ways to bring a teammate into score from Zone 3? A challenge to encourage the player to link up.